All right, thanks everyone for joining us today. We're joined by Dick Corbett, head football coach Marcus Freeman. He'll make an opening statement, and then we will open it up to signing day questions first. I'll turn it over to Coach.
Yeah. Before we get into the signing day, I want to obviously, we've had a couple coaching staff changes, and I know I put out a statement about Lauren, and I could not be more excited for him to join our program. We had the luxury of time, right, since Coach Bayless decided to resign. And, I want to make sure I credit and thank Fred Hale and our strength staff for being able to continue to have our guys ready to play in games this year. And so, John Waggle and Ron Paulus helped me tremendously in this process of finding the right guy to lead our strength conditioning unit. We've talked to probably over 30 guys in the field, and ultimately decided that we wanted Lauren to lead this program. I was looking for someone that, one, can, reinforce my vision as a head coach in the weight room. Our athletes spend a tremendous amount of time in the weight room, and we have to make sure our messaging is the same, but also uphold those standards that I believe it takes to win a championship, and it's built in the weight room. The standards of discipline, the toughness, all those things that I truly believe that can be created in the weight room. I was looking for somebody to continue to instill that. He has a history of being in the field, of leading a large group of people, but also he has experience in really individualizing a training program to attack specific needs of individuals. And that's important. That's what I believe we needed. When you talk about training 120 athletes, there has to be an organization and structure into what you're doing. But I really wanted to find somebody that truly understood how to utilize the science, how to truly attack an individualized approach to making sure every athlete truly can reach their full potential. And I am truly happy that he will be leading our strength conditioning program. I want to congratulate Jared on his much-deserved opportunity to lead Troy's football program, and I couldn't be more happier for him as a friend, but also as a colleague. It's a great opportunity for him. And as we announced, Gino Gaduli will lead our offense and be the coordinator for the bowl game. I thought it was important to continue to utilize the collaboration efforts that we utilize in the offensive staff room, but also in Steve Angeli's first start, it's important to have that connection between quarterback coach and the quarterback as you go into your first start. I thought that was extremely important. And so I don't have a timeline. I don't want to put a timeline into naming the right guy to lead our program, our offense, and we'll do a national search. We'll do a search. And it's a unique situation where our previous offense coordinator was the tight ends coach. I believe we have a quarterbacks coach that is second to none in my beliefs in Gino Gaduli. And so it's a unique situation where you're going to look at an offensive coordinator that has shown to maybe coach tight ends, but also I'm going to consider Gino Gaduli continue to be our offensive coordinator moving forward. And so I don't have a timeline. I want to make sure that we make the best decision for our offense and for our program moving forward. Now that we've covered the coaching changes, I want to make sure that we turn our focus to signing day. And that's what this day is about. And these 23 young men that have been committed to this place for a while, and now it becomes official. And I talked to every single one this morning, and it's exciting for them. It's exciting for us in terms of what this opportunity truly provides. We have 23 signees from 15 states. 15 of those guys will be mid-years here in January. One's obviously already here with CJ. We had a Buckus Award finalist in Kingston. 19 different players earned 4- or 5-star status. And again, we evaluate off of what we see on film and what we see live and in person. We've gotten live evals on every single one of these players that committed to us, which hasn't been something we've done before. But ratings matter too, right? I mean, those are important. If they keep scoring, we always say we want to win. So those matter too. we had 2 top 50 overall recruits in Cam Williams and Gerby Lambert, and they said that was the first time since I think 2020 that's happened here. And then the best thing to me was the 0 decommitments in senior seasons, and that shows that these young people want to be here and they have a close relationship to each other. It's a strong class, and they're a close class. And that's also credit to our coaches and to Chad Bowden and our recruiting staff and making sure that we keep these guys together, because until they actually sign, there's always people pulling at them, to say, is there a better opportunity for them? But they stayed committed to each other and to this university and this football program. So I'm extremely happy about that. We addressed a lot of different needs. I mean, it's a well-balanced class, but it always starts with a quarterback. And CJ's been our longest commitment, and I think he is the leader of this class, and he's been the one that makes sure to keep this class together. But the other part of that is, I've always said, we're O-line, D-line driven, and have 4 offensive linemen committed and 4 defensive linemen committed in this class was important. And then I'll always say this, the core foundation of our program will still be built off of high school recruiting. I know the transfer portal is a new thing with college football, and we're going to address specific needs in the transfer portal, but our foundation of this football program will always be addressed through high school recruiting, and I'm pleased with those 23 guys. A couple of thank yous before I open it up. I want to thank our recruiting and personnel staff with Chad Bowden, Butler Benton, Matt Jansen, Dre Brown, Mackenzie Zeno, Zaire Turner, Caleb Davis, Carter Allman, and Madison Hahn of Anthony Travel. Our admissions have been amazing. Mickey Kidder and Shannon Kelly for their time. Professor Chris Stevens, who's been very impactful with recruits, with parents. He's done an unbelievable job and been a huge asset to us. To our academic staff, Adam Sargent and his staff for the just hours and hours of meeting with recruits. And it's different here, right, is that every single recruit has to be evaluated in terms of, are they a fit for Notre Dame? This isn't just a football-only decision. And so the hours that are put into making sure they're the right fit for this place is tremendous. FIM, our Fighting Irish Media, has done a wonderful job. I saw the video they put out, and they're just always forward-thinking. They're so creative. They raise the bar in everything they do. And then our football families, it's important when you're not from this place in this state, which we recruit nationally, that parents are able to speak to other parents about how they make it work with their children being so far away. And that's one of our greatest selling points is you don't have to talk to us coaches about it. Talk to the parents. And the parents of our current players have been tremendous in the help that they've and the information they've given to the parents of the recruits. And so I'll open up for questions and to get in specific questions about the recruits.
First question, front row, far right, Eric Hansen.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned the lack of decommitments. Why do you feel like there was less drama in the home stretch this year? Was it an approach different? Did you look at different kids? What do you think it was?
I think it starts with the relationship. It starts with you can't relax when a kid's committed. You have to continue to pour time in building that relationship and trust. But it's also the ability to continue to sell Notre Dame, right? And reminding them up front, like, this is what you're choosing. Don't choose this place because of a coach. Don't choose this place because of just what you believe in NIL. Like, there's so many different reasons to choose this place. And when they make the decision, we remind them of that. And so I think the other thing is the core, like those guys able to develop that relationship with each other. Like, things can change. I always tell them, don't make the decision based off things that can change. Coaching can change. Uniforms can change. A lot of things can change. But the majority of your class, those relationships, will always be there. So continue to help each other and build this relationship, and that's what we did.
I think there was a lot of unknowns about NIL and recruiting in the last cycle, and there was a lot of fear among the fan base that Notre Dame may get left behind with that dynamic. What's your sense of how that dynamic has changed in Notre Dame's place in the NIL space?
Yeah, our collective, the fund, has been tremendous. And They've been committed to making sure that this football program and this university can continue to compete for championships. And they do it in such a unique way, in the Notre Dame way. And I am extremely pleased with what our collective, the fund, has done, what they continue to do, the investments in our athletics program, and the ability to continue to compete, not just in the present, but in the future as NIL continues to change. There will be change, I'm sure, in the future, but the group is committed to making sure we are in a position to compete for championships.
Front row on your left, Tyler Horka.
Hey, Marcus, how important was it for you guys to sign a 5-star wide receiver, something that hasn't been done in about 15 years, and just what can Cam Williams add to that group?
I don't know if Cam was maybe a 5-star when he committed. I don't know when he became one, but the thing that attracted us to Cam was his speed. I mean, we've said, hey, we need to address speed. That's a part of Lauren Landau. That's a part of recruiting. We want to continue to enhance our speed on the outside on both sides of the ball. And that was the thing with Cam. Like we saw him multiple times run 4.4s. And we had him in camp. We had him live. He is a tremendous player that's from Chicago. And we got to make sure that the best players in Chicago that fit this place continue to come to Notre Dame. And that was the case with Cam.
And then sticking with the offensive side of the ball, particularly skilled players, the 2 running backs that you guys got, it seems like you're getting guys like that with regularity at that position. So what does that say about what Dylan McCullough has done and just how important that is? I know it's a quarterback, wide receiver-driven game, but, I mean, you just had a really good running back who's going off to the NFL, so it seems like that's of high importance to you guys as well.
Yeah. I remember when Aeneas came here for camp, we had not offered him, and, he was here with a lot of great prospects, and he was the best one. And we offered him at that camp, and then he went on to get a whole bunch of offers, and he committed and probably shortly after that, in the summer sometime, but he is a very unique player that, again, believed in Notre Dame, but also in the development that Dylan McCullough would do for him. We've have a history of producing great running backs, and Dylan McCullough has a history of continuing to develop great running backs. And so, again, there was a lot of people pulling at Aeneas, but he stayed strong. He continued to come over here, continued to be a part of this thing, and I'm really excited to have him here. And then Kedron was the last home visit, the second to last home visit that I went to. And I remember sitting in his home with his mother, Coach McCullough, and a couple of us there, and his 3 brothers and sisters. What a unique family. What a strong mother he has. And you talk about being close to a lot of schools in Texas that I know wanted him. And for him to be committed to us for such a long time, he came on his official visit. He wasn't committed then. And then right after the official visit, he said, this is where I want to be, and this is who I believe in. And for him to stay solid, I left his house saying, we got a special one there. And I believe both of those guys are going to do tremendous things here, but both of them understand Notre Dame and want to be a part of it.
Second row on your right, Dan Ernst.
Marcus, I'm curious, from the time you started as a defensive coordinator here to your first year to now, what have you learned about recruiting, how you've had to time manage, how your staff has time managed, and how has the process changed, and how have you evolved as a recruiter with you and your staff?
Yeah, I think there's changes in recruiting when you start talking about NIL, even transfer portal and those things that you have to continue to adapt to. And we have, again, as I mentioned, the fund and their ability to help us with NIL opportunities. But the core nucleus of recruiting still comes down to relationships, right? And that is investing time in being intentional about pouring into the relationships you have with recruits, their parents, their coaches, anybody that's important in their life. And to me, that still is why you get the majority of the recruits that you get, is because of the relationships. And so I have to make sure that I'm leading the charge, right? As the head coach, you have to, and you got to spend a lot of time pouring into all recruits. It's not just defensive recruits, not linebackers. I'm talking about all 23 of these guys. But it also takes a staff. And Chad Bowden has done a tremendous job in communicating and keeping these guys together, but our position coaches too. And so it's been a focus and a important part of everything we do is that we structure, hey, we have recruiting time every day of the week, and football stops. Let's continue to develop this relationship.
And there was a time where early enrollees weren't a thing. Now they've been a thing for a while. Now you have a quarterback in C.J. Carr who has been able to be here for bowl preparation. How important has that evolution been and that process been to his development and getting him used to sort of without classes what it's like to be a college football player?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that with probably two parts. Like with a quarterback, I think it's unique to get here early, to learn the playbook. It's different, especially for the quarterback, and it's been great to have him here. And there can be two rights, right? And then I have recruits and parents ask me all the time, like, is he going to be behind if he doesn't start mid-year? Academically, yeah, you miss a semester, but in terms of the opportunity to play football, some of the greatest players we've had as freshmen here or in my career have been in the summer. Right, Ben Morrison was a summer guy. I can't remember if Kyle Hamilton was a summer guy. I think he was another guy that started. So when I was at Cincinnati, Sauce Gardner was a summer guy. And I'm talking about three guys that started as true freshmen. But there's also an added benefit to coming in early, too. And so there's no wrong coming in early or coming in the summer. It's whatever is the preference of that student athlete. But to have CJ here in this bowl practice time has been great for him in terms of the adjustment into the expectations for football.
Second row on your left, Tyler James.
Marcus, what makes Kingston Villamuasa such a special linebacker?
He's probably the most, I would say right now, college-ready recruit we have physically, mentally. He comes from an unbelievable program at St. Bosco, but he's so mature. Now, the more you talk to him, he's got a goofy side to him. But Kingston is mature. I always said, man, he's like a grown man. Great parents. Two of the strongest parents that I've been around. And his mother continued, when we recruited him, she said, I want him to go somewhere he's going to get a great education. I want him to go somewhere that education is important. And I think back to his father when he committed in my office saying, just take care of my boy, take care of my son. And it was an emotional meeting, but that is just a reflection of how he was raised, right? As a football player, I mean, he is a physical tackler, a physical block destruction. There's a lot of traits that he has that makes him one of the highest recruited linebackers in the country. But to get him here early, he'll have a chance to compete right away, I'm sure.
And then I believe you guys were the first to offer Bryce Young after a camp when he was here in the summer. He was pretty raw as a prospect then. What did you guys see in him back then, and what have you liked from the growth he's made since then?
Well, his last name obviously tells us what his bloodline's like. I told him now that nobody talks about his mom that was a track star, right, that she can run track, and I said he gets it from his mom. But he came to camp, and he was this tall, skinny. He was tall and skinny. But he showed some skill sets that said, okay, this guy's going to be good. And now you look at him, he's huge. I mean, in a year, it might have been a year and a half, he's gained weight. I think he's even gotten taller. But he has the tools. He's got everything that I'm sure his father had when he came here, and he's going to be a great player for us. But he's a great young person that, what I told him is that if you don't see the value in Notre Dame by looking at your parents, then if I can't convince you to come here, then I'm going to struggle, right? Because you can look at mom and dad and realize the power of this place and this university. And so he didn't commit right away, but we were able to get him to understand how important it is to get him here. Mm-hmm.
Front row on your right, John Bryce.
Marcus, you referenced pretty much every member of your recruiting department. As this month unfolded, you had to shuffle some responsibilities due to coaching changes and have different people pitch in. Katie will pitch in and help on recruiting. When you have that kind of depth of people touching a recruit and being a part of their recruiting process, how much do you think that impacts? How much is that maybe a factor in no decommitments?
Yeah, it's huge, and I didn't get a chance to thank Katie. Sorry about that, Katie. She helped me with the notes, but she didn't put her own name down. But it does, like I said, it takes a village. There's so many questions that recruits want to know. And we have experts in a lot of different fields. And I can explain what Katie does or what, Chad and his staff does or what our medical people do, but to hear it from them is so important. They want to spend time with our training staff, right? Our athletic training staff. They want to spend time with our weight room staff. They want to spend time with Katie and talk about marketing and branding and stuff like that. And it's important that they hear it from the person they're going to be working with, and not just me the entire time. And so when you have a staff committed to spending time with recruits and families and answering questions and doing Zooms, that's when you see a class like this come together.
And then, in many ways, this is probably your first real, true, full recruiting class for the runway of the recruiting class. Do you remember maybe the first 24 prospect you talked to, and is this a roadmap for what you want to do in the future?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely a roadmap for what I believe in. What it's going to take for us to continue to have success in college football. It's built off high school recruiting in a balanced group that we have. But I don't remember the first one, but I know the first commit, CJ Carr, and sitting on our balcony, and what a unique situation with his family and his grandfather, and both grandfathers, one coaching, one playing. His father played at Michigan, and I remember him saying, "This is where I want to be." And I said, man, when he left my office, I said, that's the leader you want for your program. A guy that says, I want to create my own road. And as a quarterback, that's what you need. You need a leader. And that's what he was and what he is. And I'm excited to see the growth of him. But that's the first story I remember. The first example I remember when I think of the 24 class was C.J. Carr saying, this is where I want to be. I want to lead this football program and lead this 24 class, and that's what he's done.
Front row on your left, Jack Sobel.
Hey, Marcus, you mentioned Bryce Young. He's got the last name, the pedigree. Kennedy Urlacher, that's last name everyone will recognize. What about this program, appeals to guys, from NFL families like that?
I think you can, when your dads are Hall of Famers, right? The fathers can say this game will win. And you want to make a decision that will help you reach all your athletic goals. Don't cheat your athletic goals, but understand the game of football ends so fast. And you're talking about guys that have played multiple years and in 13, 14, 15 years in the NFL. But I think even talking to Brian Urlacher, he's able to tell Kennedy, hey, man, this game's going to end. And so go somewhere where you can maximize your football opportunities, but understand, set yourself up for life after football. And I think that coming from the Urlacher family, a guy that didn't come here, right, but understood the value of Notre Dame, he had a huge impact on his son, Kennedy. And, I think Bryce is different because his parents both went here. But Brian didn't and still understood how special this place was. So I think it speaks volumes to guys that have played the game at the highest level, one of the best to ever do it, right? And talking both Urlachers and the Youngs, but also the understanding that, hey, football, the career, no matter how long you play, is short.
And then what can you say about Gerby Lambert, just the physical player that he is, and also on the mental side? I mean, Harvard's not a name you see on a lot of guys' recruitments.
Yeah, came down to us in Harvard. And you're talking about a top 50 recruit in the country. We call him the Dancing Bear. That was his nickname. And he was a soccer player. And his whole family was big into soccer. And he played soccer up through his freshman year. And he's only played football for 4 years, starting his freshman year. But he is a great player. When we were recruiting Boubacar, I remember his coach telling me there's a kid in the next class that he's going to be one of the best offensive linemen in the country. And from that point, we started, recruiting him. And, for him to commit to this place, because education was important, not just football, especially for his mother. Education was so important in this decision. To get him here, I mean, he fits everything this program looks for.
Front row on your right, Julianne Pelusi.
How we doing?
Hi, Marcus. You talk about CJ being the head of this recruiting class. How high is his ceiling here at Notre Dame?
It's high. I don't know how high it will be, but it is. It's extremely high. I watch him throw the ball in practice these last couple of days, and I mean, he's got a great arm. His decision making. He processes information and makes decisions at a high level. But he's a freshman, right? He's got to you know, the one thing you can't take into consideration when you talk about hard work, you have a goal, and we know it's going to be hard work, but you never know how much time is going to be put in, has to be put in to reach those goals. And so we'll see how much time it will take him, but I truly believe he has such a high ceiling in terms of where he'll be as a football player, and he's so competitive. That's the thing about CJ. He's smart, he's athletic, he's talented, but he's competitive. And those are things that are hard to measure. We get him around, he comes to some junior days and those things where he's around some of his teammates. I mean, he's one of the most competitive guys there is, and so that's what you want in a quarterback.
And you're talking so much about families with your recruiting class. What is it outside of a big last name that you're looking for?
You know, I think it's important to recruit families because young people, it's hard for them to see beyond the game of football. I was that person at a time that all you can see is yourself making the NFL and you ain't worried about life after football. And what's important as parents, you know, myself included, to be able to say, okay, hey, son or daughter, athletics will be over. What place gives you a chance to maximize your athletic opportunities, but also set you up for the rest of your life? Because that's going to be way longer than your athletic career. And so I think it's important that you have adults that maybe have played or maybe have been through college sports and athletics to be able to say, hey, son or daughter, make sure you understand that this is more than just a football decision, that this is we say 4 for 40, right? And this is a decision that's going to last for a long time.
Third row on your right, Tim O'Malley.
Coach, this applies to recruiting prospects and also your transfer portal targets as we move into that conversation. You and your staff can't always agree on every evaluation. And you have the veto power for the last couple of years. When you're looking for a differentiator, physical trait, mental trait, what is it for you that makes a guy a take when maybe you guys are going back and forth thinking, do we have room? Is this a take?
I think every position it could be different, but the one X factor is the competitiveness. And you can find out how competitive a person is. There's different ways you can talk to their coaches. You can say, how are they, and watch their most important games. I want to see you show up in your most important game. I'm thinking about Logan Thomas, right? A guy that had a shoulder injury and didn't have to play the state championship game. And he said, listen, I'm going to play with one arm. And that's what you're like, okay, like this guy's competitive, right? Hey, does he practice when he's injured? You know, how is he? If you're a competitor, you don't want to get bad grades, right? Like, I mean, that's what I tell our guys. Like, if you're a competitor, you're a competitor. You're a competitor in the classroom. You're a competitor on the football field. And so those, to me, are things that we look for when we say, okay, this guy and this guy are very similar in athleticism, very similar into performance on the football field. Okay, how do we find out who's more competitive, right? You got to ask those tough questions. You know, you can ask a kid a tough question, but to me, that's the X factor.
Is that any different with the portal kids? Because you have a year to go over the recruits. Your portal is a very tight window where you have to find out. And maybe some of those guys, Javante John Baptiste wasn't even a starter, and he obviously became a very important player for you.
Yeah, I want to know how competitive they are, but what type of person are they? When you talk about portal kids, you're talking about guys that are going to come into a established locker room, and we can't bring in a selfish person. Like you this is team, right? In high school recruiting, a lot of times it's just about you. It's about you. We love you. And this is about you. Come to Notre Dame. You. When you come as a transfer portal guy, it's about, okay, you're coming in to be a part of this team. Like, you're already a college football player. And, you know, that to me is more important than anything is you got to find ways to figure out who this person is as a teammate. And there's somebody I'll tell you, right? There's coaches. Somebody knows some coach that was around that player that might be former maybe his former teammate, something like that. But you got to find out, hey, what type of person is he, and what are you bringing into your locker room?
Third row on your right, Drew Mentok.
Keep talking about wanting to build this program through recruiting. How important is it to keep stacking complete recruiting classes from a position standpoint, especially in modern college football with the transfer portal the way it is?
It's so important. As I said, I think in the opening, that we are going to, our core and our foundation is going to be based off high school recruiting. You know, we don't want to continue to major in the transfer portal, and we haven't. We've hit specific needs, which we'll continue to do. But if you're able to bring somebody out of high school and you have them here and they understand what this place is about, that's more important than anything. I think a guy like Benjamin Morrison that comes in here and he's a great player. And I'm sure there's many people that would love to have Benjamin Morrison on their team, but he understands the value of this place. He understands what this place provides. We're competitive as anybody else in NIL, and so he doesn't want to go anywhere else. And so that, to me, is so important, is that you continue to bring the right guys in here that are good players, that believe in this place, and they'll continue to be the nucleus of your team.
And as we go on, we'll move into transfer portal questions.
Third row on your left, Tim Priester.
Coach, two wide receivers, big receivers. Were you looking for size, or what did you feel that your receiver room needed?
We wanted size and speed. I've played against Bo Collins as on the defensive side of the ball the last 2 years, and I know the talent he is, and he's an extremely talented football player that has shown on film to make plays at a high level in college football in big games, and so that was something we were looking for. His length is important, but his productivity is, to me, the thing that stuck out, and I knew just from going against him what type of player he is. And with Chris, his speed, we were looking for speed, and that's what, to me, stuck out on film. And he has a lot of production. His production's through the roof, but the speed that he truly has and could add to our team is what attracted us to both of those guys.
And then the two defensive players, Oben, how do you anticipate using him? Is he JJB's replacement or the other side? And then as you look at Jordan Clark, are you anticipating him competing at nickel or safety?
With RJ, we would see being a defensive end. Yeah, truly being an end. And, again, another guy you went against in person. And when he got into the portal, we were looking for a defensive end, and we couldn't find a better one, right? And I remember being in a car with Joe Alt coming back from Lombardi, and he said, "Well, you guys recruiting? We're going after the kid from Duke that just got in the portal." He was like, "He's probably the best one I went against." And I said, "I'm good." If Joe Alt's saying that, I'm good. That confirms what I saw on film. And, and so we're excited to get RJ here. And with Jordan, we see him being a nickel, in our base defense. And similar to Thomas Harper, right, nickel safety. But he is, you talk about competitive, right? And another guy that he can look at his father that played many years in the NFL. And, I love Ryan's story because Ryan was a free agent. Ryan was a free agent that had to earn that second, third contract and became a great pro bowler. And Jordan understands the work that has to be put in to achieve those type of things. And so some of our guys don't understand it yet, right? They don't understand it yet, but Jordan understands that because his father is a great example of the work you have to put in to get those desired results. And so that's why I see him using him, but I'm excited to bring both of those guys here.
Front row, far right, Eric Hansen.
Coach, when you were looking for quarterbacks in the portal with Riley Leonard, was he a fit in part because of his different skill set or despite his different skill set? Being more of a runner, being different than Sam?
He was the best quarterback that we believe was in the portal. And, to me, you get the best players first. And then you say, okay, how do we tailor what we do around those guys? And that is so important. And so we weren't looking for a pocket passer. We weren't looking for a dual threat guy. We were saying, okay, as we look to take another guy out of a quarterback to add to this program, who's the best one that fits this place? I've always said that, right? The best one that fits this place, and then how do we tailor what we do offensively around those guys? And so I think that's the situation more than anything with Riley.
And then I wanted to follow up on a question I asked you at the end of November. I asked you if you felt optimistic about the progress that was happening with the incoming transfers and the widening maybe of the pool that you could look at. When we look at Riley Leonard and Bo Collins, are we seeing evidence of that, or are we reading too much into that because they're not grad transfers, they're not freshmen?
Yeah, what Riley is, you look at Riley, I mean, I think it's just a great example of, Notre Dame continuing to find ways to get, maybe it's not a graduate transfer, but get the right guys in here. And that's all our dialogue continues to be, is how do we make sure that we have a faster process to admitting or denying the right guy, right? And so admitting the right guy, denying the guy that they don't feel will fit here. And that's what you see with Riley, who's not a graduate, that they looked at his transcript and said, you know what, he's going to be a fit here. And they admitted him as soon as they could. So I see a lot of progress there with that situation. We'll continue to – I'll push, right? I'll continue to push, but I also understand that, there's standards that we have that I have to, make sure I understand and I'm okay with.
Front row on your left, Jack Sobel.
Hey, Marcus. With Chris Mitchell, what do you look for someone from the Group of 5 level, knowing it's going to be a step up in competition? What do you look for to tell you, like, this guy's production is going to translate?
I think you look at the guys he goes against, right? You look at him in some of the bigger games that they play versus really good competition, and then you really evaluate the skill set, right? And maybe not look at just who's he going against, but let's watch him. Let's watch, how can he separate? How does he catch the ball in contested situations? It's easy when you're wide open to go catch the ball. I'm looking at, hey, how does he make contested catches? And, is he running by guys or is he struggling to get by guys? And so those were all the things that, to me, you look at when you're looking at a guy that maybe isn't in the Power 5 level.
What does having a kicker as accurate as Mitch Jeter do for you as a coach in games?
It's big, I think in the 2 years that I've been head coach, the one thing I've kind of changed my philosophy on is taking points, right? And that it's important to get points on the board. And you can't be so greedy that you're turning down opportunities to kick field goals. And when you have a kicker that you believe is the best, right, the best out there, and it's a great feeling for an offensive coordinator and a head coach to say, okay, let's take the points here and kick it.
Front row on your right, Julianne Pelusi.
When it comes to Riley Leonard, when you guys played Duke this season, what was so hard to plan for, and what was so hard in game adjustments, and what can he do? Yeah,
he's a complete quarterback, and number one, he's competitive. And I don't want that to be a word that's just thrown out there lightly. Like that's something that I have a lot of respect for, how competitive you are. And you see it by the way he plays in short yardage situations, his ability to put his shoulder down and say, I'm not going to be denied. But then in the passing game, I mean, he can make every single throw, right? He's accurate, but he also can extend plays with his legs. And now he has a true ability to make you respect him by pulling the ball in some of those zone read situations. So what it does is puts the defense at conflict, right? And that you're not just saying, hey, we'll react to the quarterback keeping the ball. You have to have a man, a defender accounting for the quarterback. So what does that do? It opens up things in the pass game because you got an extra defender trying to stop the run with a quarterback. And so I think that, to me, is it's an important factor when you talk about on offenses. When you have the ability to run the ball as a quarterback, it puts the defense in conflict in difficult situations.
I talked to some of his offensive linemen from Duke last week, and I was curious. They said how good of a guy and how good of a teammate he is. Yeah. What did you see in him while you were bringing him here through the transfer portal? Yeah, he is an unbelievable teammate. And, he's still with his team at Duke. And he's going to be with them until they finish their bowl game. And he's not even playing right now. Well, he knows he's not playing, but he wants to be with those guys and finish off the season. And so that speaks volumes of who he is as a person. He makes those guys around him better, right? And those can be through his actions in terms of leadership, but also through his decision-making. And so he is a great young person. He's a great young man, great parents, but a special football player.
Staying first row on your right, Pete Sampson.
Marcus, with Leonard, do you think this is the last time you'll go into the portal for a quarterback for the foreseeable future? And I was interested, like the balance of win now, obviously, it's most important, but also developing the guys that you have. And then, like, the recruiting statement, it makes two. I mean, you've done well with Carr. Yeah. If that eventually, quarterbacks have a question of like, okay, are you going to do this again?
Yeah, again, I don't want to go into the portal every year and get a quarterback. As I said earlier, I think the decision this year it started off with just a number situation. It's not my belief in Steve Angeli and Kenny Minchie. Those dudes are good football players. Steve's going to lead us into this bowl game, and I'm excited to see what he does on the field. But it was the reality of the transfer portal. If somebody leaves, now you're stuck with two. You're stuck with two quarterbacks on scholarship. So I want to continue to try to find a way to keep the quarterback room at 4, knowing that if somebody transfers, you'll have 3, like what happened last year. But I believe in Gino Gaduli and our development of quarterbacks. I've seen what he's done with Steve Angeli and Kenny and what he's going to do with CJ, So to answer your question, I can't say I'm never going to go in the portal again to get a quarterback because it's more of a numbers thing than anything. But I would love to make sure that we continue to develop the guys we have in-house to lead this program.
And I was interested with grad transfers. You referenced earlier about like football's going to end someday for all of these guys. For the grad transfer, that's like probably a little bit more real than it is for a teenager. Do you find that those guys just, for whatever reason, can see that here and match with here better than, it's an easier pitch than it would be for a high school kid?
Yeah, I think Notre Dame offers you the university, right? It offers you a chance to increase your value as a person, right? And when you associate yourself with this university. But the thing you see with majority of grad transfers is I try to tell them the NFL, as you look at it from a 500 level, I want to say this the right way, but they're not looking to pay guys for 10 years, right? They want to sign you to a 3 or 4 year contract, and if they can get the next guy as a rookie to do the same thing you're doing, then they're going to go get the rookie. And so what I try to tell them is that, hey, you want to create as much value as you can. If you're an NFL prospect, you want to create as much value as you can in terms of where you're going to get drafted at, because that's more guaranteed money. And so that's the same conversations when I talk with some of our guys that are coming back instead of going to the NFL. Like, if you come back and create more value for yourself and you're drafted at a higher slot, you get more guaranteed money. So that's why I encourage you. If you think you can come back and increase your draft stock, come do it, because you're giving yourself more guaranteed money, a greater value in terms of the NFL, because the second contract isn't guaranteed. There's a reason why the average length of NFL career is less than 4 years. Because if they can, instead of paying you a 5th year in a new contract, if we can get a rookie, then we're going to save the money as an NFL team would do. So my message to those guys, okay, can you create more value at Notre Dame in this year for the NFL draft? Because that's why a lot of these grad transfers are coming here, is because they said, okay, I'm looking for a place that I can improve, but also create more value for myself in terms of the draft.
We'll move on to questions of all topics, starting with Tyler James, second row on your left.
Marcus, I had one more on that related to the transfer portal. Ryan Clark told a story that when Jordan was on his visit, I think Kenny Dillingham called you and talked to you about Jordan. I'm curious what sort of conversations happen between coaching staffs with these transfer portal guys, and are there a lot of them, or is it becoming more commonplace? I don't really know what that's like. It seems pretty odd to me.
Yeah, it's not too often that. It's never happened where I had a kid on a visit and the coach from his previous football program called me raving about the type of person he was. And that to me is a reflection of who Kenny Dillingham is. And I've talked to him maybe once or twice before, but that's a reflection of him as a person, but also of Jordan Clark in terms of the impact he made on that program and on that head coach. And so, you gotta. If somebody wants to talk about one of your former players, you want to talk about another former player, like, you got to be cautious, because you don't know exactly what agenda somebody that you might not know what agenda they have. And so I tell our staff, like, if you're not going to say anything positive about one of our players that's in the portal, don't talk about them, right? If you don't feel like you can say something positive about them, don't answer the phone and blame it on me. Blame it on the head coach that says, hey, I can't talk about a guy that's no longer in our program, because what I don't want is any coach that we have in our program talking negative about anybody that's in the transfer portal that left our program. And so it's a double-edged sword in terms of the communication you have with previous coaching staffs on portal kids and in your communication with guys that you've had left your program.
And then with the hire of Lauren Landau, is Fred Hale planning to stick on staff? Are you guys planning to keep him, or will he be moving on?
I've let Lauren will be able to put his staff together. I know he's going to have conversations with everybody on our staff. I've spoken very highly of everybody we have in that weight room and our staff and what they've done, but I want to make sure Lauren Landau is in a position where he feels like he can be successful, and that is going to entail him making decisions on the staff that he hires.
Second row on your right, Dan Ernst.
Timetables in college football have changed so dramatically. It used to be National Signing Day was in February, right? You had your national championship game on the 7th or 8th of January, whatever it is. Exactly a year from today will be the first round of the college football playoffs. How important is it for you to wrap up your recruiting class as early as possible, and with that, in what way is the transfer portal and recruiting and evaluating that talent different? What's the process that goes into that, and what's kind of the time frame of scouting and trying to figure out what your needs are and who you're interested in?
Yeah, I think that is a 365-day process. You're always looking for where we need to improve at, where we need to enhance at. And so when you're evaluating potential prospects to come into your program, there's no specific timeline for that. It happens every single day. In terms of you look at next year at this moment, it's going to be different, because the best thing we can do in terms of recruiting is win. That's the best thing we can do. If we take care of that, recruiting will take care of itself. You'll have less guys leave your program. You'll have high school players that want to be a part of it because you're winning, and that's going to be our focus. Is that we're going to recruit. That's what we do. We're going to build relationships with these guys, but great high school players want to be a part of a program that continues to win. And so that's where our focus has to be, is that, okay, we got to develop this team, and we got to win, and we got to make sure we're playing next year at this time.
Final question this afternoon, second row on your left, Mike Berdino.
I guess Buckner and Pine coming back. We haven't discussed that. Just in general terms, what do you make of that? Were you involved at all in maybe greenlighting that? But could they be assets, especially Buckner having spent so much time with the playbook and Gino last year, just however that goes? Could they be football assets in any way, even just to sit down with Riley Leonard and let him know what it's like?
I had no discussions with those guys coming back here. What I do love about it is that there's two guys coming back to get a Notre Dame degree, because that is, to me, what this thing is all about. And so I did hear about Tyler going to play lacrosse, and I know that's going to make Coach really happy, Coach Corrigan really happy, and I'm going to wish him all the best. And Drew, I know he's coming back to get his degree. From what I've heard, I haven't talked to either of them. I text Drew throughout the year when I saw him doing some good things early in the season, but I did not talk to him about his decision to come back here. But I love to hear that two guys are coming back to get their degree.
And then the health component for the transfer portal, everything's on the fly there, but you got Leonard and Collins in particular coming off season-ending injuries, essentially. How did that work? Do you go by the medical MRIs kind of things, or do your medical people get hands-on?
Yeah, on their visits, official visits, we make sure they meet with our medical staff. And, I know Rob Hunt and our staff have relationships all over the country, right, especially in the ACC where these two guys are coming from. And so they did their homework, they did their evaluations, and they gave us both the thumbs up on both of them.